Good morning, YouTubers, tubers of the YouTubins. Hey everybody, Tom from Whistle Thicket here. It's Saturday, I think first Saturday in November. We're in our back pasture. I think this is about 2 acres or so, is my guess. It's a hilly pasture. You can probably see our horses and our donkey. We've had a couple frosts lately, maybe 3 or 4 frosts. Last night was really cold in the 20s, so we put blankets on 2 of our horses. One is Rowan, my daughter, is in horse competitions with endurance riding. She does 25 miles in the woods with her horse, and he has such a thick coat, we had to shave his coat so that he wouldn't overheat. It of course grows back, but it's not quite there yet, so we put the blanket on him. Our other horse has a thin coat, so she wears that blanket most of the year. And here comes Wyatt. Wyatt is our resident donkey. He is just a cool equine to have around. Very lovable, very adorable, protective, like most donkeys are. So again, we're in our back pasture. You can't quite see all of it, but this pasture actually is about 2 acres, and I'm not standing at the very beginning of it, but we have a track system that goes around, and that's so the horses get exercise on a small pasture. So they have to, if they want to get to their hay, which is over there, they have to walk the perimeter of this pasture, which is about, there's a plane going overhead, which is about, I think, 1/3 of a mile or so, 1/4 of a mile. So they have to walk that to get hay, and then they have to walk back to their run-in shelter, which is right here, to get water. We do that so they get exercise. A lot of horses don't get exercise when they're in a pasture, so that forces them to stay fit, basically. What I'm talking about today is we're talking about seeing if we can increase our pastures. Man, that's a loud plane, but whatevs. And we've done this before, actually. Our front pasture is probably the flattest part on our property. It's maybe 1.5 acres. It's not that big, but it wasn't fenced in. So that was one of the first things we did, was we fenced that in. This back pasture where I'm standing right now and where the horses are, this was a strip of woods, and up on that hill was woods as well. We still have some large walnuts we're keeping, but some of the walnuts have died, actually. I've noticed the walnuts don't like this full sun habitat, so some of them have died, actually. So firewood time. Or I have an Alaskan sawmill, and I'm hoping to get some wood slabs eventually. So again, our horses are on a section that was wooded before. It took a lot of work. We had a big burn pile here, and it still isn't 100% usable. So that's one of my things, is to make that little space more usable. So the reason why we want more pasture is so we can rotate our horses better and the donkey, and we can give them more space. So I'm walking to a part of our property that I've cleared over the years. Actually, right here is, if you can see it, this is mainly elderberry plants. I'm going to transplant these. These are wild elderberries. Whenever I bush hog and mow back here, I leave that space untouched, but I need to transplant them. And this pasture isn't even great pasture. There's weeds in it and things. So I am going to show you a part of the property that I haven't really shown you before. It again is kind of steeper, and it's very overgrown right now. But our dream is to add a little more pasture. This might add another 1.5 acres, and if we do it right, the horses will be able to use it. If the horses can't use it, I'm sure we can figure out a animal that would enjoy this new pasture that hopefully we can make happen. So let's check out our new potential pasture area, I hope. So we are in what could be a potential pasture. As you can see, it's pretty overgrown. This was, I think, a pasture at one point in the history of our farm, though now it's turned into brambles, and actually there's so many brambles that it's hard for me to get through, to tell you the truth. And holding the camera makes it difficult. So at one point, let me get out of here. At one point, this property was a tobacco farm, and there was cows on this pasture, and over there on the edge of our property is actually the remnants of the cow fence, actually barbed wire. I am scrambling. I actually felled a bunch of these trees actually that were dead several years ago with the hopes of turning this into firewood one day, and I am. I think that's step number one, is harvesting the firewood from these trees. And a lot of the work I couldn't do myself. We would have to get a grader in here. Man, I got a lot of firewood to harvest here. That's good. As you can see, now it gets pretty flat. This is still on our property. We got maybe 15 feet. This is actually some of the flattest land on our property. We live in the mountains of North Carolina, and our property starts at about 2,600 feet, 2,700 feet, and at the very, very top, it's 3,400 feet. So we got quite the elevation gain, especially once we get to the wood. So there are still some decent trees here that would need to be harvested, and I would hate to see them go, but we would harvest them with a purpose for wood slabs or for firewood, things like that. And there's a dead wildlife tree. I don't know if it was a walnut at one point. Let's go look at this wildlife tree is what I call them. So here's that wildlife tree that I call it a wildlife tree. It's a dead tree. It's covered in some decent mushrooms. I believe those are polypores. Probably some animals living in it at times. Woodpeckers, raccoons, possums, bats, which I really like having bats in the homestead. Again, I'd hate to see this tree go. It's a dead tree. Most people are like, get that dead tree out of here. But a dead tree still serves a purpose, and eventually it will become part of the soil, nutrients. It will enrich the forest floor. So I really like this dead tree for some reason. At one point, it was a great big old tree. I think it was a walnut. I'm not really sure because, as you can see, it's a dead tree, but there's lots of walnuts around it, so that's my guess. So as we keep walking, it's gotten flatter, still kind of on the edge of the property, but this is going to take a lot of work. And I'm not opposed to doing the work, but I don't have the equipment to really do the job. I can harvest the firewood. I can take out a few of these trees, but this needs some heavy equipment. So I am saving up. I'm hoping to do this one day, and that would just make our farm even more usable. I'm almost on my neighbor's property, so well, still on our property. So again, parts of this is pretty flat. Part of it is a little steep. But for horses, we would move our fence all the way here, and they would have a lot more room. We could rotate our pastures more. So that's really what I'm hoping to do, is rotate our pastures. Part of the point of this video is that it's hard to find a perfect homestead for your budget. I know a lot of us are on budget. Some of us aren't, but a lot of us are. So it's hard to find exactly what you want in a homestead. But sometimes you can think outside the box and turn that homestead into something closer to what your perfect homestead is. There really isn't a thing as a perfect homestead. At least that's what I think. But it can be perfect to you. Use what you got and think outside the box. Even though this may not look like a pasture to most people, it was a pasture a long time ago. And I'm hoping to bring that back. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a project that maybe will happen this spring. Maybe it'll happen in a year or two, but it's on my list to make this farm more usable. Sometimes we talk about finding a bigger farm. Sometimes we're like, we love this place. And we do love this place. We always love this place. And I feel the more we do, the more improvements we do, the less likely we're going to want to move, because we're more invested in this property. Every year we make new improvements, and every year we get a little bit closer to having everything we actually want and need, I think, which is great. So until next time, keep on dreaming.